Opposed? And the ayes have it. All right. See how quick we can get out of here when we're missing a few members. All right, Senator Brass, if you would kindly join us, and we're going to resume where we left up now. Yesterday, we had a sign-up sheet, since this is the first time this bill has been heard. Are any of these people here this morning that want to be heard? We had a number of folks. Looks like we got another, because we do have people who want to testify. All right. We've got 2 sign-up sheets now. All right, I'm going to do my best to match these 2 sheets for testimony. Yesterday, we heard the gist of the bill. There had been some discussion yesterday, and I want to remind everybody on the committee. Mr. McDonald, if you don't mind, I'm going to talk about this bill a little bit. Yesterday, Senator Brass presented his bill. It's really quite simple. What this bill does. It changes the definition on how medical cannabis is interpreted. Raises the limits of prescription from 5 to 50. What else was it? It did something else. I'm trying to remember. Oh, the delivery system went to the vape, so that these folks.
Correct. And then on the conditions, we added lupus and changed Crohn's disease to IBS.
Right.
That was at the recommendation of DPH and Composite Medical Board. And then we removed severe or end stage for most but not all of the illnesses, and then replaced it with a phrase where the positives of the medicine could outweigh the negatives of the symptoms.
Very good. The bill was presented yesterday, and I remind everybody that we're not talking about recreational, we're talking about medical. And there'd been a lot of discussion over the years, and I think Senator Brass probably said it more appropriately. When we passed the original medical marijuana bill, then we went in the next term and we started working on this, how to make it work. It's unique that we have the federal government that still's got this marijuana classified in the same classification as heroin. But it has apparently has proven effects that are beneficial to sick people that have this litany of diseases and all. Senator Brass did something that should have already been done, and that's raise the standards. At that time, we were dealing with a new source, and we set it at 5 milligram, and we're raising it to 50, which seems to be the middle grade or standard across the country, and the delivery system. So that being said, we got a question over here, but I'm sorry. So at that point, we're going to take some testimony and let you make a statement. I would ask those of y'all, when you're speaking, to try to be as brief as you possibly can. And if there's any redundancy, then so be it. But let's move on, because you get extra points in this committee for brevity. All right. First up, Teresa Yarborough.
My name is Teresa Yarborough. I'm the director of the Georgia Cannabis Industry Alliance. I am a pot smoker since I was 14 years old. I'm 73 today. I've cured hepatitis C with marijuana oil on the illegal front. First of all, I want to say none of this is working for us as consumers, as hemp retailers. What he's trying to do here is create a recreational product under the guise of medical marijuana. This has nothing to do with patients. These companies have been hemorrhaging money since the day they started. And it seems like the only way the legislators know how to remedy that situation for them is to destroy our other cannabis industries here in Georgia. I'm not for that. I don't think anybody here is for that. If they can't make it on their merits, let's go back and rediscuss this. But this is not working for anybody but them. That's all I got to say. Oh, one more other thing. Out here on the street, y'all talk about street weed. It's like 27 to 30% THC. It's whole plant. It's not extracted THC that's done in a laboratory.
You have a question, I believe. Mr. Carpenter.
Yeah, thanks so much. Ma'am, if you don't mind. Just so we're clear, I want to make sure I understand what your testimony. You support pot smoking,
Yes.
but you don't support raising levels for people with medical conditions.
I don't support a monopoly in the cannabis industry.
Okay, so how you currently sell another product?
I don't have anything to sell. I represent the retailers, the wholesalers, the
Which
distributors, the
retailers?
consumer.
But
Not medical. This is not medical. When I go to the doctor and he prescribes me a medication, what happens next after I get my prescription? They want me to come back in and follow up. How's this working for you? Have you had any side effects? Do we need to increase your dosage or decrease your dosage? This is not medical. This is a scam. This is marijuana being sold under the guise of medical marijuana, and it's just not.
Okay, thank you.
If I may ask a question, what would be your alternative to this since?
Well, my real alternative would be to start over, decriminalize. Is it fair for companies to be making billions of dollars in this industry and us still be able to be arrested? It should have started with decrim and then worked its way up.
So you're an advocate of legalization.
Decriminalization. This is legalization, what we've got, and it hasn't worked for anybody. 26,000 card holders in a state of 11 million. We don't want it. Nobody wants it.
So the only alternative would be to buy street weed.
Well, right now, that's what I do.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. Yolanda Bennett. We have Ms. Bennett here.
Did you bring her?
Welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yolanda Bennett with the Georgia Medical Cannabis Society. I'm coming to you today not from the Georgia Medical Cannabis Society, but I'm coming to you today as a patient that needs my meds. Now, I'm coming to you not just to smoke or to get high. What I'm coming to you for is to ask you all to make sure that we have access to our meds. I know a lot of people talk about street weed and all this other stuff. That's something that we, the patients, aren't looking to get. What we are looking to get is some type of relief. And this particular bill right here has access to more products for us. We're able to have inhalation. Do you realize last year when SB220 passed, my meds were taken away. The smokables were taken away from me. The smokable raw flower was taken away from me. However, this particular bill has inhalation, which is a start. We already know we can't get to point A to point Z all at one time. We got to go here, 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 especially here in Georgia, because we have to understand the concept of the landscape. And a lot of people who are caught up. A lot of people ask, why do we need a medical cannabis program? The reason why we need a medical cannabis program is because in 2014, that's when the raid stopped for medical cannabis dispensaries. Like right now, we do have adult use markets. But the thing is, at any given time, the DEA can go shut it down. Why take away medical cannabis if we don't have any protections? If we go ahead and go straight to adult use, then we have nothing to stand on. Let me tell you the act so you all can look it up for yourself. This is what Americans for Safe Access did. They stopped the raids. They stopped people from the DEA from coming down on the dispensaries. This is why I'm passionate about this. Having a medical cannabis card allows patients to travel. My condition does not stay home with me. So, okay, yeah, y'all pass it where it's decrim here, no card. But then I travel somewhere else. I can't take my meds with me. It is the Commerce, Justice, and Science Appropriations Act. If you want to look this up, this right here is what patients are protected. This is more than just getting high. Yes, I would love to have natural flower. I would. But it's so many legislators that need education. So many people need education. And that's why Georgia Medical Cannabis Society and other organizations out here who are providing education for the public. So all I ask you all to think about the patients. When you think about the patients and not about just getting high, that's just like telling a diabetic, look, we're going to do away with insulin because we're going to find a better route. Don't take something away without having something in place. So I compel you all to vote yes for SB220.
You have a question.
I have a question for Senator Brass. I don't have a question
Okay,
for you.
gotcha.
Thank you. I appreciate your testimony. So I'm new to this committee, and I just have started getting into this, and I just had a question for you. So some of these testimonies were confusing to me. So did your bill, we're just doing it for oil. That's correct? Just oil? Is that right?
So oil is already allowed in current law at 5%.
Right.
We're adding vaping, and as
Right.
I discussed yesterday, that there are patients that have one of these conditions or several of these conditions that would need immediate relief and can't sit around and wait an hour or 2 hours for the oil to set into their system.
Right. So, but I guess my question was, this is only increasing for oil from 5 to 50. We're not talking about selling marijuana in the flower or
No.
in rolling joints and all that
No,
stuff.
that now, full disclosure, that was in my original bill.
Okay.
And I negotiated that out with the chairman of Health and Human Services in the
Okay.
Senate. So
Okay. I just wanted to be clear to make sure I was understanding. We're just doing oil. It ain't nothing to do with
that's
smoking,
correct.
rolled joints and all that stuff.
Correct. That is
Okay.
not part of this bill.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, now you've lit up a few questions. Number 24.
Yeah, quick question about the vaping. Is that like we see people vaping, or is this more like an asthma inhaler, or how's that administered?
It's probably going to be more like what you see people vaping.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, vape pens, and I don't know how all you vape, but
I got you.
I know vape pens.
All right. Mr. Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, I know you spent a good bit of time in Washington, D.C. As Chief of Staff for former Congressman Lynn Westmoreland, but educate me. If it's still against federal law, how is it legal for anybody, even with a medical dispensary, to be able to transport any kind of THC product across state lines federally?
Sure, Representative, I think that would have been a better question asked in 2019 when we passed the original version.
But
And
it's,
really, you can date it back to before I got here, I believe 2016. The
Might have been.
state, you know, I think you could argue that the state, the federal government is failing to act, and so the states decided to take it in its own hands. So.
Okay, I guess my whole point is states, you know, like we're gonna break federal law, we're gonna create a workaround of federal law, and it just bothers me that
I totally understand.
until the federal government decriminalizes it, you know, what do we do? And I know it started with the Representative Peake's bill. I want to say it was 2014. It has been 10 years or so.
2014, okay. So either way, I got here in 2017, so it was done before I got here originally.
Okay.
But worked extensively to pass what's current law for the system. And it certainly wasn't perfect then, and it's still not perfect now. We're trying to make it better I'm just trying to increase access for the patients.
Thank you for answering my question.
Yes, sir.
All right. Ms. Bennett.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Senator, for being here. First of all, thank you for adding lupus to the list of conditions. I appreciate that. Just one concern, not a concern, but a question. I can receive my medications through mail or delivery. Does this bill prohibit or allow for the medical cannabis to be either delivered in any way?
So we added a floor amendment that allows caregivers to pick it up for you, but no, you still cannot get it by mail.
Thank you.
So you are a patient, a card-carrying patient will either have to physically go pick it up at a dispensary, or a caregiver of a card-carrying person would have to go pick it up.
All right. Of course. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I guess I'm trying to figure out, again, with Representative Chairman Williams' question. So this is obviously for medical and opioids and all those are regulated federally as well. But I guess my concern.
Not very well, but yes.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I was going. So thank you. I would much rather see, and there again, like I said yesterday, we got a lot of, veterans with PTSD, and I would much rather see them use this, and you might have somebody that's here that could, I think doing this oil and using this oil has a lot less side effects than being hooked on opioids to try to, cure your pain. Are there any studies of that? I mean, obviously this is, like the Chairman Powell said, this is actually a natural product. I mean, I just don't see how we can go wrong by using this medical grade stuff versus taking, opioids.
Right. I think, we kind of covered it yesterday on the studies, and to Chairman Williams' point, we, with it being a Schedule I drug at the federal level, it's not allowed to be, there's no research allowed to be done on it. So any research we have is from other countries, Israel being I'd say one of the best. And so those types of studies are there, they're just not recognized in this country.
But they're good. I mean, the studies are pretty good.
I mean, I'm no doctor, but I think they're out there, and there's plenty of doctors. There's plenty of doctors that do agree with those studies.
Thank you.
All right. Number 25.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, I wanted to commend you for bringing this bill. I think it's a good bill. I think it is helping get needed medicine to folks that are sick, that need it. And I think the increases are appropriate, and I think the opportunity for the vaping of the medicine is appropriate also for those that need quick delivery. And I just want to thank you for doing that, and thank you for answering all the questions that have been asked, Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time.
Well, let me hold up. We've got a number of people that want to be heard.
Okay, thank you.
If I might ask the committee to hold your questions, if you have any, for the author of the bill, until everybody goes through this. Mac Parnell? No?
He was just testifying in favor of one of my other bills.
All right.
Now he's against.
What is this name?
You can put him down as a no. I've already heard his testimony.
Do we have,
Oh, there you go. You got his letter.
do we have a Mark Ravinda?
Raduca.
Come on up, man.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'd like to make a
Thought we were talking
comment
about-
before you
I was
speak to
trying to
the,
get you back.
I'd like to make a comment to the two previous people that spoke. I understand your passion. To the second person that spoke, the bill that passed last year, and this might be a good time for the committee, but last year the bill you're talking about was the hemp-based bill that was passed by the Department of Agriculture. You have two types of THC that's being used. One is from the hemp that was authorized by, I think, the Farm Act in Congress. and the other for the benefit of the committee members. You know, I've been involved in this since we legalized the medical-based product several years ago. And it was earth-shaking at that time because of the children and a lot of the folks with physical impairments. And the problem that we face, the reason we have to go around the elbow to scratch our rear ends, is because of the Congress and the inefficiencies of the U.S. Congress. That since the 1930s, marijuana has always been classified as a dangerous drug, the same as heroin, and it's, you know, kind of crazy for that. But over the years, there's probably been more money spent through law enforcement activity, and it was really a cash product to them of going out and looking for folks. Now, my understanding from the public safety arena is that there's a lot of jurisdictions that have already decriminalized possession of marijuana. But what we had attempted to do a few years ago with medical-based marijuana was to have a pure product, something that there was no possibilities it was adulterated or anything such as that. I remember meeting with families a few years ago that would have cook-offs on a Saturday morning for their children. And these were families that would get together and they would buy marijuana and they would boil it down, they would press it, and they would do the oil, anything to help those children. And I don't want the committee members to, those of y'all who weren't there at that time, to lose sight of the fact that this is a medical product. As I had said yesterday, that a representative had said just a minute ago, I want to remind y'all that this is for the betterment of folks. There's no medical testimony that I have ever heard that said that marijuana was harmful. To my knowledge, I don't know anybody that's ever died from smoking marijuana unless they stepped out in front of a bus. And that's the difference in the two. One is the hemp-based THC is used in drinks. It's used in other products. And you'll be hearing, hopefully you'll be hearing from that at some point during this next few weeks. So that being said, to the folks that spoke, I appreciate what you said. I would encourage, especially the first speaker, you know, I understood what you said about the hypocrisy of the system, and it is a hypocritic system. But what we've done in the state of Georgia is all we could do. So I would encourage you to educate your legislators or those that you know to move forward with whatever you wish them to move forward to. But more importantly, if you don't have the name and the phone numbers and the contacts of your U.S. senator and congressman, if you'll touch base with my office, we'll be glad to give you those contacts and urge them to move forward, to take the binders off of the states to do what they need to do, or whatever they desire to do. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
No worries. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name's Marty Riveda. I'm out of Roswell. So 5 years ago, my family was blindsided by my son's high-potency THC addiction. And over those last 5 years, well, long story short, I'm the lucky one. My son's in recovery and doing quite well. However, over the last 5 years, I have engaged with many parents who have been within our recovery community in hopes of helping their children who are addicted to high-potency THC. These parents are impacted because they've lost their children due to high-potency THC psychosis and ultimately committing suicide. Permanent impairment, mental impairment, due to the use of high-potency THC and psychosis. I personally know a family who can't leave their home for an hour because they can't leave their 24-year-old son at home alone. And then I also have an acquaintance whose son died from an overdose. The environment he lived in was that his father used medical prescribed marijuana, and that's where his addiction started, by having access to that in his father's home. And ultimately, his addiction grew into other substances, including pills, and he died of an overdose of fentanyl. So high-potency THC is not, it does impact families. It's killing our youth on a regular basis. I've moved from corporate America to being a parent coach. I work with parents who are struggling with their children, who are, majority of them started with high-potency THC. It's a gateway drug. And so I'm just here to share my experience that the high-potency THC is impacting our youth. It's killing our youth. And increasing medical marijuana to 50% is going to impact our youth. If they are addicted, they will find a way to use it. They will find access. And if they get to this higher potency, it will kill them. Thank you.
Could you explain, what is high potency? What is high potency THC? I've never heard that term, but.
That would be anything above, actually, I'm going to allow Dr. Raduca and Michael Memper from Georgia, or Britt Paramore can speak to that, sir. I'm a concerned parent. I don't do the science, but I do know that it's typically the THC oil, and I do understand that it has approximately a 95% potency. So it's not innocuous.
Mr. Chairman, if you'll allow, so the 95% that I think she's referring to is high concentrate, and there is states that do allow that. I believe Florida is one of them. They sell it. It's like almost like a tar, and they're considered a medical only state, and they have 95%. We're talking about almost half of that, so 50.
Very good.
I had a question for you. I'm sorry to make you sit down, but sorry for you, what's going on with your family, and appreciate you coming in. So I'm just curious, did your son have medical marijuana? How did he? I'm just curious about your story as far as where did he get it from, and how did he use it? Did he get it? Where did he get it from?
Honestly, sir, I just know that my son had access to it anywhere, anytime, anyhow he wanted. So it's not specifically medical, but my concern is that if this higher potency is out there and available in a medical form or just whatever form, that it will be accessed and our youth can be damaged by it.
So I guess what I was asking is, obviously there's a lot of stuff out there that is bought illegally, and I know gas stations have all this stuff, and like I said, I'm sorry for your what's going on with your son, but I don't think that the medical marijuana, what we're trying to do here, what Senator's trying to do is people are going to get stuff if they're hooked to it, and unfortunately they're getting it at these stores. So I understand what you're saying. I just had a question as far as where he was getting it and how that works, if he was getting it from somebody that already has medical marijuana. But thank you for your...
Yeah, so my personal story isn't directed with medical marijuana, but on a daily basis, I'm talking to parents, a new parent, every day that your child is addicted to high-potency THC. I have the one incident where the youth was living in a home with medical marijuana and had access to it. So if they have that higher potency, we're just looking at expediting the addiction.
Right. Wouldn't you agree that that's the parents' fault for having access, just like if they had, oxycodone, what I'm saying? It's not really the...
Addiction's nobody's fault. So
no, I get that.
It's a disease.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Trust me, my mom has struggled with it all of my life, so I understand what you're going through, so I apologize for that. But I just, you can abuse prescribed drugs all the time, unfortunately. So that's why I was just curious if he had got a hold of it. Thank you for coming, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to thank you, and I have a comment to make, but it may be, it's just a freak of nature. But when people want something, then they're going to get it. We've seen it during Prohibition. We saw what happened during the Prohibition era when they made alcohol illegal. It rose to the organized crime and things like that. The people want what they're going to want, and if it's legalized, and in your case, if it's legal or through these folks that are doing the tested stuff, hopefully they won't get a hold of that. Hopefully we won't see any more of this type of action. But since street weed seems to be the most prevalent drug out there today, I don't know where we're going to go with that. So, all right, Mr. Paramore.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name's Britt Paramore. I'm a licensed therapist. I have a practice in Cherokee County, Forsyth County, and North Fulton. And primarily we treat children, adolescents, and young adults with either substance use disorders or what we call SPMI, or severe and persistent mental illness. I'm also an adjunct professor of clinical psychology and do research, both here at different hospitals and universities in the United States and in Israel. Along with my research, I also provide clinical services for Cherokee County juvenile courts and for DFACs. And I'm an expert witness on this topic and have been made an expert witness on this topic in several different counties doing testimony on this. And so in 2019, I started to see patients coming in, teenagers who had all the signs of schizophrenia, which is really rare in a teen. It does happen though. It's called early onset. Almost always when it happens though, there's a family history of it, and or they've been using methamphetamine, which can cause something called stimulant-induced psychotic disorder. But none of these kids had a family history. None of them had been using meth. All they had been using is what they told me were carts. I didn't know what a cart was. I asked them. They said it was a THC product. I didn't think a THC product could cause this, so I thought I just had a rare case that first time. 2 weeks later, another kid comes in, 16 years old, same presentation, full-blown schizophrenia, no family history, no amphetamine usage. At that time, there was no research in the United States done on this. There was some abroad. We've known for 50 years that if someone has a precursor for developing a condition like schizophrenia, like family history, the use of any THC product can speed that process up, but there had never been a causal effect. In other words, there had never been a patient that anyone saw in the research who developed these symptoms by using THC who probably wasn't going to get it already because of a family history. When we noticed this in Georgia, I think we were the first practice to notice it. I started speaking in public a lot and started contacting some of the medical schools where I've done research. They had started seeing it too. So from that point to now, this is my sole area of research, so much so that I'm finishing my doctoral dissertation right now, and I'm having to find another school because I have to find a professor who's going to be interested in letting me do this research for my doctoral dissertation. And so I'll give you just a little bit of the research. I do presentations on this at conferences for accountability court judges, for criminal justice coordinating committee, addiction counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists. I also have psychiatry practice. And then we also have a veterans program that's federally grant funded that is, if not, it may be the biggest veterans treatment program in the state of Georgia other than Veterans Affairs. I'm also a veteran. And so during my research, over the years, I started to discover there were more universities studying this. So I'll give you a quote by one called Dr. Eric Messamore, who is a schizophrenia researcher at Northeast Ohio Medical University, which is one of the leading universities for schizophrenia research in teens and young adults. Last year, he said that the causal effect of high levels of THC causing schizophrenia in the developing brain is quite simply the highest impact, most well-replicated research in schizophrenia research today. There are lots and lots and lots of journal articles from the Journal of Addiction Medicine, Journal of Psychiatry, that really seem to indicate the exact same thing. As a therapist who practices, and I supervise graduate students who are becoming psychologists or psychotherapists, so I get to collaborate with a lot of practitioners all over America, and those of us who treat children, adolescents, and young adults, we're all seeing it. And, you know, I'm concerned that this committee has not heard the full story about the damage higher THC products can cause. I know there was a question about what is high THC concentrate. The national average for level of THC in the flower is about 15.8%. Back in the 90s, it was 2%. There are THC concentrates that are in an oil that people vape that can get up to 98%. When we first started seeing this in Cherokee County, because of one of the boards I serve on, Drug Free Cherokee and Cherokee Focus, I also do some advisory work for the Multi-County Drug Task Force. And so they started trying to figure out where people were getting these higher THC oils and having them tested. In the beginning, they were about 60% THC. Where they were coming from were medical marijuana dispensaries in California, and they were being mailed here and sold illegally. Now, when it comes to the developing brain, we now know, and this is just a conservative estimate, that brain development occurs most from birth to age 6, then from 11 to age 18, but from 18 to 25, or 26 in males, 18 to 25 in females, there's still significant brain development. I have seen a number, 20 or more, patients who didn't begin using higher THC oils until they were in their early 20s, who developed what is called cannabis-induced psychotic disorder, but it's the exact same symptoms as schizophrenia. Unfortunately, we think that it's permanent, unless something can be figured out to reverse it. And the medicines that we use on patients who have schizophrenia not caused by this, they're not working. I have a specialty in the treatment of psychotic disorders and schizophrenia. And so everything I'm telling you, this is not my personal opinion. Right? This is my clinical opinion, but the research and the science is rock solid. And so I would implore this committee to look into some of this research for yourself. Don't take my word for it before making a decision that's going to cause significant harm in our teens and young adults. And so, and that's.
Thank you for your testimony. I just want to thank you for what you're doing in this field, because I actually know a kid that experienced this. So we coached him in rec league football.
Yeah.
same age as my son, and he just lost it a couple of years ago. So he's got a younger brother that's playing ball at my kid's school now, and I see him at the ball games, and he's just a shadow.
Yeah. The first kid I treated, 16 years old, had a full football scholarship to go play wide receiver at Florida. Unless something can be done, he won't ever be able to live on his own again. What I'm seeing in my practices is heartbreaking. I make this statement a lot. This is an incredibly bold statement I'm about to make, but I stand behind it. I'm a lot more worried about this than I am the fentanyl outbreak and crisis. Here's why. Most of these kids that I treat, they're not going to go to the street and buy heroin or fentanyl. But the perception of risk for all things THC is so low that they don't know that there's a harm. And to be honest with you, if it was just 2% flower, I wouldn't spend all my time, energy, and resources researching this. This is something in my career I've decided to draw a line in the sand because I know what I'm seeing and I know what the research says. I have a feeling that the cannabis industry knows this research as well. There is some contradictory research out there, but I think the research indicating this causal effect is much more substantiated. And some of the contradictory research, you have to look at the funding of that research. As I mentioned, I also do research in Israel for Hebrew University, and Israel has been researching this. And Israel, one of the things they're really trying to determine amongst a lot of other researchers is what is the threshold level of THC? In other words, what is the level of THC that if crossed and used, the disease process starts. What I've seen is when the disease process starts, I'll start to see certain symptoms. And if someone quits at that point, I have seen it reversed. But some of them go past what I call the point of no return in disease progression. And that's probably a bit outside the scope of my testimony here.
All right, you have another question or two, Mr. McCollum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your testimony today. I had actually a couple of questions, if the chairman will allow me. One question is so do you agree or disagree that if you have cancer or seizure disorder or something like that, and I mean, obviously you're in severe pain, do you agree or disagree that THC would be a better alternative than opioids or morphine?
The research strongly suggests that it's not the THC, it's the CBD and other alkaloids that have the therapeutic effect.
Okay.
And what I'm concerned about is people of the age, they still have a developing brain, getting their hands on 50% THC concentrates, because in my clinical opinion and many others, that has already passed the threshold for disease progression to begin.
Well, I understand that, and thank you. So my second question, if I may, Mr. Chairman, is, so, you know, the diseases, I mean, the things that we have listed here for medical marijuana, a lot of this stuff is, these people are in severe pain, and obviously the one that's 18 years is autism, or epilepsy. So, I have a friend that has a son that's epileptic, and the oil is the only thing that pretty much really works all the time. And I understand your concern, and thank you for your research. But what you're speaking of that I feel, and you tell me if I'm wrong, is you're talking about kids that go out and find this stuff. Either they steal it from somebody that has a oil that has a prescription, or they buy it on the street, or they buy it at a gas station. This bill doesn't do anything for that. This is for people that are hurting And then you also said, and thank you for your service, you also said that for post-traumatic, so do you don't think for PTSD, this is something that helps them at all, or?
So I'll make a couple points here. First, your acquaintance with the seizure disorder, if 5% is working, what's the need to increase it?
Well, I would say to there again for my friend that, you know, sometimes, you know, you have to increase things if it starts wearing off. But these kids, I mean, his son has seizures like multiple all day long. So I mean, if 5% isn't working and you have to increase it, what's the alternative? Is just to let him have seizures. You know what I'm saying? But and I understand what your research is saying is about as far as the you know, making them have schizophrenia. But these people are in pain. The last thing they're, you know, concerned about is what your research. But I think, and there again, thank you. I think what you're alluding to is younger kids that are teenagers they're using this recreationally. And I've taught my kids ever since they were little, if you use meth one time, you're hooked. There's no trying it. So I feel like that, you tell me if I'm wrong, what you're alluding to is these kids are trying this stuff, they're getting hooked on it, and it's changing their brain. And unfortunately, that is a side effect. But there again, if they try anything else, cocaine, meth, or anything else on the street, they're going to be in the same situation. They're going to have a lot worse problems than schizophrenia. But there again, I think it's just educational. But what we're trying to do is help these patients. And I appreciate your testimony, but I was just wanting to see, do you think there's a use at all for THC in any level?
Thank you for your question, Congressman. Here's the misunderstanding. First off, these THC oils are coming from medical dispensaries in California. Second off, it is these kids that I treat. I also teach a class at ACE Academy, which is the alternative school in Cherokee County where kids are expelled. The kids in my class were expelled for substance-related instances. 97% of them is for smoking THC concentrates, and so
which is illegal. And then also in California, it's 95%, and they're mailing it here, which is illegal. That's why we're doing 50 here.
But the first patients I started seeing who were developing this were smoking 60% THC concentrates. Mm-hmm. One smoked it 4 times before he developed these conditions. When it comes to treating these conditions, I have no issue with that clinically. I've never seen research, substantiated research, that indicates 50% THC is better than 5%. When it comes to autism, which is another area that I'm involved in, there is a product going through drug trials in Australia right now before it comes to the U.S. to do phase 4 trials. That is a cannabinoid alkaloid that has no THC in it. It's similar to CBD. I can't remember the name of it. We've never seen anything so helpful for people with autism. What I'm hearing is it's revolutionizing it. I know the autistic people that I treat, it is literally impossible for me to get them to stop smoking pot, right? But the important thing is it's not the THC for this product, because it has no THC in it. And then once again, these kids that I treat are not going to go to the street and get methamphetamine, right? But there's the perception of risk for all things THC is so low, they don't realize it can harm them. And then when our state is saying it's okay for people with these 19 or 20 conditions to take 50% THC, that further lowers the perception of risk. And when it comes to veterans, I've had a number of veterans who started using higher THC products who have developed this because they started using it when they were 19, 20, 21 years old. Now, this does not occur in someone whose brain is already developed. And in full transparency, we've never seen this occur in an adult over 27 years old. We've seen acute psychosis events. We've never seen it persist, though.
All right, let's move on. We have one more question for you. Number 26, that would be Mr. Jaspers.
Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing for people I live in the Pickens, Cherokee area, for what you're doing for kids there.
Thank you.
I guess I'm following Mr. McCollum's questioning. Yes, I'm sorry I wasn't here for all of it. I was in a health committee meeting with the chairman and a different bill. But do you feel that any level of THC is appropriate? What is your...
The research strongly suggests, even though there is contradictory research, that it is the CBD and other cannabinoid alkaloids that are having the therapeutic effect, not the THC. It's very difficult to get all of the THC out and still have the therapeutic effect of CBD. So it's necessary to leave some THC in. What I'm told to get, and I'm not a biochemist, but that's what I'm told, but I have never seen research suggesting increasing THC levels increases the therapeutic effect. If I'm wrong, I would love to see that research.
You know, because the current way we have it is that's up to 5% in an oil.
Mm-hmm.
That from what all I can see has worked. You know, I guess because it does have the other derivatives in it that are being the effect.
Correct.
I guess I'm just having a, you know, see, you're kind of either yeah or no. There's no middle ground on this, because I see the CBD has been something that's really taken over the market, mm-hmm. because it is effective in so many different ways besides getting people high also. But thank you for what you do.
Yeah,
it's very much needed.
Thank you. And once again, I'm not here to give you my personal opinion, and so I do give a lot of black and white answers because I'm a researcher, and we form a hypothesis and then try to prove that hypothesis to make it black and white.
Well, we thank you for giving your testimony, and I appreciate it, and you probably just given me a little bit more validity to my attitude toward life that, you know, people do things, and we can't control what our children do. I've always said that when it came to alcohol, there was a reason that every state has a age limit mm-hmm. on alcohol. There's nothing you can do about folks, these kids who are wanting to do or experiment or do whatever it is they do. But they're getting this as an illegal substance. And I go back to the purpose of the bill. The bill specifically is a pathway for medical treatment of some of these severe diseases. And quite frankly, when I look at end stage of a lot of these diseases, I can't help but wonder that on end stage, does it really make any difference? Because these people are on the way out, and if it's something that gives them relief, then so be it.
I agree with that.
I had a phone call this morning from a fellow from, I believe it was up in northwest Georgia, that had neuropathy. And it was, you could hear the pain in his voice, that what he's able to get from his marijuana THC card that he's got, not doing the work he needs. He's tried everything in the world, and he was in tears on the phone about this. So,
well, I guess my comment, I'm sorry, forgive me.
But at the same time, you know, we don't live in a perfect society. You know, alcohol is a perfect excuse for that, except some of us who do like the taste of it.
I think there's one scenario I forgot to mention, and let's take the 18-year-old who has irritable bowel syndrome. We know that 18-year-olds smoking higher THC levels have and will develop this condition. And The comment that being addicted to meth is worse than having schizophrenia, it absolutely is not. There's almost nothing worse. And this 18-year-old with irritable bowel syndrome developing an incurable permanent form of schizophrenia is doing far more harm than help. That's why I just implore you to look at the research yourself. I'll be glad to send you the 3-hour presentation I do on this, and I'll include all of my research.
Very good. Thank you so much for your testimony. Let's get back to the list. Greg
Raduca.
Mr. Raduca.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee members. Dr. Greg Raduca, on the board of Georgians for Responsible Marijuana Policy, and appreciate the seriousness with which the committee is listening to testimony, especially Mr. Paramore's. Appreciate that greatly, because THC, agencies like mine are small nonprofits, and I apologize, we have not done as good a job as we could have in past years. I've been doing this, following this since 2014, of educating legislators about THC. Unfortunately, the THC in recreational marijuana is the same THC as it is in medicinal. THC is THC, and so it is an addictive substance. So my heart goes out, because I'm been a treatment provider, prevention provider for 50 years, treating kids at Ridgeview Institute for cannabis use disorder, other drug disorders. So my heart goes out to people who are struggling, like the person you mentioned on the phone. At the same time, and this is all said with a great respect for Senator Brass. When we've been on the same team on some bills, I enjoy that a lot more than being on this side. But that being said, THC can be a substance that does a great deal of harm in people's lives, and I've witnessed some of that suffering. One of the things you have is a chart in your yellow folders that we provided, if you've got those. People are dying on the highways in Washington and Colorado and other states about the average of once every 3 days due to THC impairment. Unfortunately, in our state, we don't have the laws that really allow us to measure and then report THC impairment for deceased drivers or traffic accidents that have resulted in in deceased persons. I hope that can be improved in some way, but that's a whole nother bill. So you can see some of the data that THC impairment makes up about 11% of the fatal crashes in the state of Washington. And I can provide you very similar charts for states like Colorado and California that are also measuring more than we are here in Georgia. I wonder, with Georgia having twice the population of Colorado, how many of Georgians are dying on Georgia's highways each week. We mentioned veterans. There are 80,000 peer-reviewed studies on marijuana that have been done since the 60s. And some of those studies talk about veterans, and we have 22 veterans on the average committing suicide every day. And what I've seen in my practice and what the research says is that, in short term, marijuana, THC does work, and it can alleviate anxiety, and it can alleviate depression, and it can alleviate the symptoms of PTSD. But that after a while, and this happens with kids too, the patients that I treated, in more long-term use, the peace and love drug becomes, it can result in a lot of anger, a lot of rage, more depression, more anxiety. So the research that I'm reading says it can contribute in the long run to PTSD rather than alleviate the symptoms. You also have a fact sheet in your packets that talks to this, some of the dangers that are involved. So chasing relief through THC, I really want these patients to get relief for their symptoms, but chasing relief can lead to chasing the high, unfortunately. And when you start getting into 50% THC, you take twice the recommended dosage, you can go to, the equivalent of 95, 100%. And that can lead to some of the issues that Brett was talking about. So just a real concern that it can be that serious. That also the dosage, in 1 ounce of THC, there are actually 28,350 milligrams. So if one were to take that over a period of 30 days, that would be 945 milligrams a day of THC. It only takes 10 milligrams of THC for the typical adult user to start getting high. And that's why they have standardized servings in other states of THC, limiting it to 10 milligrams. At 50% THC, 1 drop would contain a little more than 12 milligrams. So 1 drop of 50% THC would be enough to get the normal user, the new user, high. The problem with THC is that you need more and more of it over time in order to feel better. And also, over time, you can take it not just to feel better, but just not to feel bad. Because THC is so addictive, 1 out of every 3 users of THC on a regular basis develops cannabis use disorder, which is in the same chapter as opioid disorder, cocaine disorder, and cannabis use disorder is many of those folks are dependent on THC. So it's just a dangerous substance for many for that reason.
Very good. Any questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
And I do remember you. You've been in front of the committee I've sat on for many years as we've gone down this path, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I'm glad you did say that there was some positive effects to it. But we do, I'll reiterate what I said a while ago, we don't live in a perfect society. People do get addicted, whether it's alcohol or tobacco or this. And it just seems to me that marijuana since the 60s has been such a prevalent product out there, illegal and otherwise, that folks have gotten so used to it. But what we're dealing with is medical usage. We're not in here to legalize the flower and stuff like that, even though personally I'm not too sure it wouldn't be better if the U.S. Congress would, as I said earlier, if they would take this off the list and let doctors start monitoring it and let them do the prescription, both in the delivery and in the strength, to suit the illness. That would be the perfect way to go.
I sure hear you that leaving it up to the physicians seems to make a lot of sense. However, it was the physicians that, well-meaning, did overprescribe OxyContin and gave us the opioid crisis. If we hadn't had so many physicians overprescribing OxyContin, we wouldn't have had the opioid crisis that we did.
Absolutely, and there again is another argument that we have prescription opioids and the things like that, and these type of this cannabis, medical cannabis, seems to have an effect that seems to me to be a whole lot safer than what we've seen in the opioid epidemic.
At the lower percentages, but at higher potency, you start getting into the major league stuff equivalent to some of the effects of opioids.
Right. But it all goes back to the fact that when people are in pain, they're going to do whatever it takes to seek relief.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. Jodisa Gonzalez. Not here. Do we have a Avia K? Avia. Aviva, all right.
Thank you, Chairman Powell. Thank you, Senator Brass, for bringing this bill. You've both been working really hard on these issues, which maybe we should call disinterring cannabis at this point. We're kind of pulling it from the grave and reviving it. My name is Aviva, for everyone who doesn't know me. I founded the Georgia Hemp Economic Revival Organization over 10 years ago to usher in this hemp revival successfully and hopefully in a healing way. I see myself as a mediator between legislators and consumers and businesses and addiction recovery people, all that stuff. I have a lot of points to make today, but I'll keep it as brief as possible.
If I may ask, could you speed this up? 'Cause
Yes,
we're losing
and I
members.
wanted to say...
We have another meeting, and
Yeah,
I'm afraid
yeah.
we're going to lose our quorum.
I'm grateful that you gave them like 20 minutes to speak, and I'm hoping to get at least 5.
Quite
I'm used to-
frankly, I didn't give 20 minutes, but nobody listens when the chairman says brevity is a high priority.
Yes, Britt is very knowledgeable, but I think I am as well. And I have 10 years is a long time to be managing what everyone is doing in this playground. And I just want to address them first because they made some points, and then I want to go on to what I wanted to say really quickly. I have a BA in child studies from Tufts University, and I studied a lot of alternative medicine. I've apprenticed herbalist, homeopaths, whatnot. So a lot of people heal through diet, and there's something called the GAPS diet that addresses schizophrenia in an amazing way. And what they found is that a lot of it is the source of the gut. So what they do is they find out that different things, whether it's THC or pesticides, can destroy the gut, which in turn actually creates brain issues, mental issues. And so there have been studies, coincidentally, on California weed, medical weed, that is poisoned with pesticides. And not only because it's possibly sprayed with pesticides, but also because cannabis is so incredible that it pulls pesticides from years ago from out of the ground. They found DDT in the cannabis. That was banned years ago. So because we have this medical weed sucking toxins out of the ground and then concentrating it into an oil, you're basically smoking or ingesting pure pesticides, very concentrated pesticides. So, of course, those can be linked to schizophrenia as well. Also, THC breaks down. It's alive. It doesn't just stay 50% potency. It actually breaks down into something called CBN. It's very complicated. Some other people can speak to it better than me. CBN can be considered a little bit more of a psychotic than THC. So if you've got old medicine laying around and a child finds it, and it's like 3 years old, it might be degraded into a substance that's a lot more toxic. And then just to our other friend's points, not only would Yolanda have to have a medical card to travel, and I support this bill, by the way, Senator Brass, not only would she have to have it to travel, but other people traveling here need medicine. And this is my biggest point today, is that all other medical programs have flower, and they also have home grow, which is so much safer. If these kids had access to flower, they wouldn't mess with the crazy edibles that taste weird. You know, they would be a slower ingestion, a quicker ingestion. Edibles are way more dangerous for traffic. They hit you maybe in 3 hours, so you don't know you're going to be disabled when you're driving. So I do think it's very imbalanced that we don't have flower in the program. And even vaping is more concentrated pesticide-wise than flower. So it is mixed up. If we just bring back the flower, you know this, we'll bring back the safety.
If I might repeat, that brevity is of a value because we're losing members and we're not talking about legalization of flower.
Well, okay, I will end my point here, since you obviously don't want a song, and that's okay. My point is that, yes, we're not talking about legalizing it, but what's the big deal? Recreational is not a big deal. It's stress release. Everyone needs stress relief. I mean, people break up with people. People have affairs because they're not relieving themselves from stress. So what's worse, holding on to this stress or allowing people to have stress relief so they can live their lives and be happy? What's the big deal? Like, why is that such a stigma to talk about? Some people take a drink, some people take a hit of weed. It's really not a big deal, and we need to grow past this issue. We really do. I'm personally not a smoker, but I think it's an ethical issue, and it's offensive to some cultures to stigmatize it. And I will end saying this. I know people who have been arrested for growing the plant medicine and giving it to an informant, saying, my mom is dying, I need the flower, I can't get it anywhere. Senator Brass knows, you made medical cannabis legal without growing the flower legal, without anything being legal for years. So what happened? My friends grew the flower for people. They were helping lots of people, and now they're in jail. Over a year, a husband and wife. They have 2 kids, chickens, dogs. Their life is a mess right now. And I hope we can do something about it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. And we've got a few more speakers, but, please remember that we're not talking about legalizing, wholesale legalization of marijuana. All right, Michael Mumber.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Representatives. I'll be 2 minutes or less. And I'm with Georgians for Responsible Marijuana Policy. I understand the faith we're putting in doctors. I've got a great doctor I respect a lot. She takes care of me. But there are a lot of doctors who are not going to be so integral or have integrity. For example, when I look at Florida, there's a company called Canna MD. They claim that they are Florida's leading network of medical marijuana doctors. And what they've gotten to the point of is saying Canna MD, and this is their website, by the way, is offering a $30 discount on physician appointments. Just mention the word pot of gold between March 14th and 21st to save money. So they're really profit motivated. They say, they list 72 conditions where you can get a medical marijuana card in Florida. And granted, they're not all listed in their Florida law. In fact, they say on their website, although the following conditions are not written into Florida's Amendment 2, the initiative indicates that other diagnosable debilitating conditions could be prescribed. And we have, I think, with all due respect to the Senator, we're proposing an any condition clause where if some physician finds something where he thinks medical marijuana would benefit, then it's going to be allowed by law. And if we look at how physicians in Florida are taking that leeway, there are things in this list of 72 like nausea, overweight, insomnia, anxiety, and these are not end stage. In fact, I think we're removing the end stage from this proposal. So we're talking about nearly any condition your doctor thinks or this doctor thinks marijuana would benefit, you can get marijuana. And that's why I think our argument is that this isn't recreational, but this is about as close as you could get because it's going to be so accessible. Because these doctors are going to be the popular doctors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and I remind you that that's you're reading from a list of Florida, and this isn't Florida. Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman, if you allow, I think what Mr. Mumper is also referring to was in the first version of the bill that there was a clause that added where the doctor could decide, and it did use that language of the potential benefits of such use to the patient outweigh the potential health risk. We actually struck through that provision, but I did like that language, and so I made that language apply to all of them.
Very good. And last but not least, I believe is Mr. Tom Byer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Tom Bell. Sorry, I got a bit of a cold. Tom Bauer with Leading Age Georgia. We provide services to seniors across the continuum. In particular, we have assisted living homes, personal care homes, nursing homes, and so forth. We want to thank Senator Brass for this bill. We think it would help our clients a good bit. I'm pinch hitting for our president, so I can't cite the research, but we have talked to a lot of geriatricians and so forth, and they have given us the input that they think that medical marijuana is very helpful to Alzheimer's patients, and particularly with their anxiety. And so I want to thank Senator Brass for addressing that part where in the conditions where it's no longer have to be terminal or severe. And we'd like to also thank him for the floor amendment that he mentioned before. We think it's important because we do have people we serve who are in nursing homes and so forth who cannot physically get to the dispensary, and so we appreciate that, and we very much support the bill.
Thank you so much. I don't see any questions. Now, is there anyone that I have left off? I've had two lists that I've been working from, and I think I've crossed them all over. All right. Any questions from the committee on this matter? If not, Senator, do you want to do a finish up?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Just highlight the bullet points of exactly, I think it's about 3 or 4 main bullet points.
Yeah, so the controversial parts of the bill are the raising the THC level cap from 5% to 50%, allowing us to use vaping outside of the what's already allowed of the oil, and then removing the severe end stage from the most of the illnesses diagnoses, and there's 17 total, and then replacing that language with the potential benefits of such use to the patient outweigh the potential health risk. And I'll just say too real quick, again, I appreciate Mr. Perrymore, Dr. Reduca, Mr. Mumper. They're on the front lines fighting a disease. Addiction is certainly a disease, as we've heard from the mother. I think we all agree with that. And I've gone and spoken at drug court, and I speak at peer treatment facilities back home, and I don't remember ever meeting anyone in there that their addiction started as a cancer patient, or their addiction started with ALS or seizures or MS or mitochondrial disease or any of the 17 listed. It didn't start with that. That disease started with something else. But it is a disease, and it's something that it takes us as a legislature, it takes folks that that are on the front lines, like the people we've heard from, and the people that we know back home that are fighting addiction. It's going to take all of us to defeat it. But there's a clear line in the sand in this state between medical and recreational. And I want to go back and answer Representative Williamson's question a little bit better. There's actually a congressional directive that was issued around 2014, 2015, and it says the feds cannot shut down state medical marijuana programs. And that, to my knowledge, that congressional directive is still active. So that's what allows us to do. But the clear line in the sand that we have in this state is that we have a tight grip on these diagnoses. We don't have 72 like Florida. And the reason we don't was because we put in a law that said DPH in conjunction with Composite Medical Board is who is going to recommend these diseases to add or take away. The other line in the sand that we drew was when states like Florida issued the initial licenses, they got sued. Well, what they did, instead of letting it play out in court, they decided to issue more licenses. This body, the legislature, we drew the line in the sand and we went to court. And we still have 6 licenses. So those are two main things that we delineate us that draw the line in the sand between recreational use and medical use. We have done this the right way. I still think it can be better. I think there's one other line, and they brought up a great point. Maybe we start looking next at the doctors and making sure maybe only Georgia doctors should be able to do this, because the law right now is they have to have a relationship, direct relationship with that patient. So maybe that's the next thing we need to look at to make sure we have a clear line in the sand between medical and recreational, because that is not what we're talking about. This bill is strictly talking about medical marijuana for patients with one of 17 conditions.
Very good, Senator. I want to thank you, and I apologize that it's taken so many hours of getting us around because of the schedules of the last 2 days.
It's okay. We had a no vote leave, so.
And I do want to thank you for bringing this, because this is about medical relief for the medically needy, that this works for them.
Yes, sir.
Number 25.
Mr. Chairman, are you ready for a motion?
Yes, sir.
I move that for a do pass recommendation on Senate Bill 220.
We have a motion and we have a second. Do we have any questions, any comments? Chairman Carpenter.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate the legislation. I do feel for the patients of Georgia. I just think a step from 5 to 50 is big. I'm willing to make an amendment to 25%, and then change the 2% in your pocket to 4 ounces instead of 2 ounces. Don't know if there's any love for that or not, but I'm willing to go there.
We've got a couple of questions, and then we'll come back. You can make your motion. Number 17.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to make the motion to change it from 50 to 70% at the appropriate time.
All right. Well, if you'll give me a few minutes, then we'll move that direction. Number 23.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. My comment is this. I've learned an awful lot today about the dangers of marijuana to children and those that are apparently an awful lot of them out there using it today. What I haven't heard here today is the real connection between this bill and those children acquiring those products that are causing all that problem. And quite frankly, if they're doing that now, that's an illegal activity. And if they're going to engage in that, then they're going to get it whether we pass this bill or not. And I just haven't seen anybody make that real solid connection. You can allude to it, but we just haven't seen any evidence that if we pass this bill today, there are going to be any more children using this illegal product.
Well spoken. Mr. McCollum.
Just right quick, Senator, where did, I know you said it before, where did you come up with the 50, and would you be willing to, do you think that changing that?
So we looked at 18 medical marijuana only states, and of the 18 states, there's a cap from anywhere from 50 to 70, and really Florida, you could argue, is up to, there is no cap. So we decided to go on the conservative side and go with the low end of medical marijuana only states, and so that we would still be the tied for the lowest of any cap of all medical marijuana states. And then there's the political reality. It's what I thought we could get through the Senate. I can't speak for the House.
Do you feel like that lowering that at all would be a huge detriment to your bill?
I do. I think raising it would be a detriment to the bill, but I'm at the mercy of the committee.
Very well. Well, it appears we're going to have possibly an amendment, one that's going to lower it 25 and one that's going to raise it 20. So it looks to me like a fair spot might be where the bill sits right now. But so that being said, we have a motion. And we've had a second on the bill. All right.
Yep.
You ready to be recognized?
Yep. Thank you, Chairman. So yeah, just an amendment, line 88, changing it to 25%, and then lines 101, 114, 119, 140, and 146, change it to 4 ounces instead of 2 ounces.
All right. We have a motion. Do we have a second on the gentleman's motion? Motion fails. You're batting 100, Chairman Carpenter. All right. Representative Jackson, do you wish to be recognized for a motion?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a friendly amendment to line 88 and make that 70%. And the justification, just for clarity, Mr. Chairman, I have constituents that are in need of this medicinal THC. And we don't want them to break the law or write legislation where they're going to have to break the law. And so by increasing it to 70, I think is the appropriate level for line 88. And so that's my friendly amendment.
All right. We have are you making that in the form of a motion?
Yes.
Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comment from any of the committee members? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay?
No.
Well, I think that's pretty overwhelming. And I think we're right back in the same posture that I originally said. We added and we subtracted, right back at the center. Now, if there's no further amendments, all in favor of the bill as proposed, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right. I think the ayes have it, but does anybody want to show of hands? No? All right, the ayes have it. And Senator, your bill is going forward the way it is, hopefully knowing, and I don't mean this in any disrespect for the Senate, but if this bill goes through the way it is, it won't have to come back to your door over there.
Be great.
Because we do know at times how dysfunctional the process can be.
Yes, sir.
And I want to thank you, sir, and thank everybody for being here today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd be honored for you to carry it.
And I'm hoping that you'll see that House Bill 74 gets on the calendar sooner. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, man.